welcome back. I am Daniel of Earth, and this is the 6th and final part of my Stone Arch Bridge painting. In this portion, I'll be doing some base coats for the water. For that, I'll be using titanium white, Mars black, primary blue, light blue violet, yellow oxide, and burnt umber. For these base coats, I'm going to be using my small flathead brush, and I'm just going to be making some ripples. I do this by going back and forth horizontally across the canvas to make a little bit of a rippling effect. I am also going to be using this brush to blend some of these colors together, but I'm not going to bother filling in quite everything and making it look perfect since these are just base coats. While I wait for that paint to dry, I'm going to start the next section by working on the fence at the top of the bridge. For that, I'll be using titanium white, Mars black, alizarian crimson, and burnt sienna. I'm going to be using that flathead brush again to make straight lines, and I'm going to just use a little bit of a light touch, and I'm going to go down the line with the bridge, decreasing the gap between the bridge and the fence as I go. Then I'm going to use a little bit of dry brushing technique, just a tiny bit of the paint on there with my few bristle brush, and put in some lines between the fence to make it look filled through. In this next part, I'll be working on the water more and working on all those reflections. For this, I'll be using titanium white, Mars black, primary blue, light blue violet, yellow oxide, burnt sienna, and burnt umber. I'm going to start off using a slightly larger flathead brush, and I'm going to start off with the shadowed area. I'm again using that back and forth horizontal technique to create rippling effects in the water. And I don't want these to blend too much, so I don't want to go back over the same area too often. I want to leave distinctive highlights and colors behind instead of blending them too much. Now I'm going to start working on the highlight sections. Again, using that same brush and using the same back and forth horizontal technique. And I'm switching to a slightly smaller flathead brush for some of those highlights. And some of those lowlights as well, just to get those details in. Now I'm going to start putting down a little bit of a base coat for that shoreline. And I'll get into the foliage a little bit more in the next part. Here I'll be putting in a Canadian goose. For a little bit of more interest in the foreground of the painting. And I'll be adding a second one later in the episode, once that one dries a bit. For these details in this goose, I'm using that small few bristle brush. And I'm trying to blend the feathers out where they need to be blended. Again, using that smaller brush. Now we'll be moving on to the foliage and the trees. For this I'll be using titanium white, Mars black, primary blue, light blue violet, yellow oxide, hooker's green, and burnt umber. I'll be using a sponge for some of these base coats to the right of the painting. So I'll be using just a dabbing motion with a little bit of, this is just a kitchen sponge that I cut up. And it's one of the things that is pretty helpful and pretty cheap to have in your arsenal of painting supplies. I'm going to switch back to a flathead brush to do some more shoreline work. And since that's a pretty small area, I will continue using a brush instead of a sponge. I'll be switching to that small bristle brush to do some of those tree trunks in the background. Now I'm going to use that small bristle brush to add in a little bit of fencing along the shoreline. And I'll be using a round brush to add some more details to that foliage. Now that the water and my first goose are dry, I can add in my second goose. Again, I'm using that few bristle brush for these fine details. That is about all the time I have in this video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and this series, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I have more videos just like this over on the channel. There's a whole playlist called Painting where you can find all of my painting videos. Again, thank you all so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.